Good morning, Morai V'Rabotai, Bruchim Habayim. We are continuing on Masechet Sukkah, and we are on Daf Chaf, Amud Aleph, all the way on the bottom of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a zchut for Rufah Shalema of Esther Bracha Bat Chaya, the girl in our community that needs Rufah Shalema. Amen. Also, for the Rufah Shalema of Nisim Ben Miriam, and especially dedicated for the Rufah Shalema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, should all have a full recovery, Rufah Shalema Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. This week's learning of the community has been graciously dedicated by the Shea family, Dayan family, Kohen family. This should be an ultimate zchut for all of them. Mishpachot Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Okay, so we started a very interesting back and forth about mats. Like in the whole Amud, the last piece of the first perek of Masechet Sukkah discusses the kashrut of mats, different bamboo mats and different types of woven and braided material, whether or not they are kasher for schach or not. So we got to just go back a few lines to the Tanu Rabbanan to catch the flow of the Amud again. Tanu Rabbanan, machzelet shel shifa v'shel gemi gedola mesachim ba, ketana en mesachim ba. The Gemara said, if you have a machzelet made out of gemi and these are softer materials, shifa and gemi, the larger ones are usually made for schach. Therefore, they're not mekabel tumah. You could use them as schach of your sukkah. The smaller ones are often made for sleeping or sitting on them. Therefore, they are mekabel tumah. Hence, they are pasul as roofing material for your sukkah. And then the Gemara said, and this is where the springboard of today's Gemara is going to be created. The Gemara said by a machzelet of chilat, kanim vechilat, regular reeds and that are a little harder, that people less use them for sitting and sleeping on. The Gemara says gedula, not gedola, but gedula. If it is braided, mesachechin ba aruga, if it's woven, and mesachechin ba, and then Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, in the name of his illustrious father, Rabbi Yossi says, does not make a difference if it's gedula or if it's aruga, braided, woven, all of them are good. You could use them as roofing material for your sukkah, and that's good. Then the Gemara dropped this line over here that chen haya omer Rabbi Dosa. V'chen haya Rabbi Dosa omer kidvarav, which means Rabbi Dosa said that the machzelet kanim vechilat is kasher for schach. This brought the Gemara to discuss an apparent stira that we find in Rabbi Dosa. On one hand, Rabbi Dosa over here says, machzelet, this mat made out of kanim vechilat is kasher. Okay? And this is a braita. On the other hand, you find a Mishnah that brings the same Rabbi Dosa that says, machzelet is mekabel tumah, and hence would of course be pasul. We know everything that's mekabel tumah is pasul for schach. Where is this Mishnah? So says the Gemara, Tenan Hatam, we learned in a Mishnah, in Masechet Idiyot, Per Gimel, Halacha Dalit, or Mishnah Dalit, Kol HaChotzalot Metamein, Tamemet, Divrei Rabbi Dosa, all of the Chotzalot, we don't know what Chotzalot are, but whatever chotzalot are mekabel tum'at met. And that is what Rabbi Dosa says. Chachamim say midras. They become tamet tum'at midras. What's the way? They become tamet tum'at midras and not tamet tum'at met. Anything that becomes tamet tum'at midras, it by definition also becomes tamet tum'at met. The Gemara says, yeah, that's what we mean. We mean they add to Rabbi Dosa that not only becomes this chotzalot tamet tum'at met, it also becomes tamet tum'at midras, which is additional chumras to it. So says the Gemara, v'ha anan tenan kol ha'metameh midras metameh met ma'af midras. It becomes additionally tamet tum'at midras. So now the Gemara says, well, now that I have this Rav Dosa is par month, it's very important for me to know what this chotzalot business is. So says the Gemara, my chotzalot. What is chotzalot? Amar Rav Avdimi bar Hamduri, Marzubli. It's Marzubli. We don't know what Marzubli is. The Gemara says, my Marzubli, Amar Rav Abba, Mezabli. They are bags, sacks, that usually the shepherds use for putting their stuff in. Fine. So what's the machloket? Rab Dosa says, well, they're tamet to madmet because they're a sack. Sack is a kli. You put stuff in it. So therefore it's tamet to madmet. You gotta understand that. Right? Chachamim say it's also tamet to madmidras because sometimes when the shepherd is tired and he has good dogs, he could go to sleep. Well, what does he sleep on? This becomes his pillow. He puts the sack under his head and goes to sleep. So therefore, some people sometimes also sleep on it. It becomes Tameh Tumat Midras in addition to becoming Tameh Tumat Met. Fine, we could relate to that. Good. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, Resh Lakish says, Machzalot mamash. This chotzalot means machzalot, the same thing. Chotzalot, machzalot, same thing. Right? Which means mats. It's not a sack, but it is a mat. Oh, so now Rabbi Dosa is saying that the mat is mekabel tumah. That's a big problem because 3 seconds ago we said Rabbi Dosa v'chen haya Rabbi Dosa omer kidvarav the mats are kasher or pasul for schach kasher, and now you're saying the chotzalot mean machzalot, and Rabbi Dosa says these machatzalot machzalot are mekabel tumat met, which means they would subsequently be kasher or pasul for schach. Oy vavoy. You have a brighter that says Rabbi Dosa v'chen haya Rabbi Dosa omer kidvarav that these mats are kasher for schach, and now we have a Mishnah in Idiot that according to Resh Lakish's understanding is telling you, same Rabbi Dosa, that they are mekabel tumat met, and therefore there would be of course pasul for schach, right? That would be the unfolding question that we have over here. But before that, we have something to explain. The Amar Resh Lakish, Hareni kaparat Rabbi Chiyahu banav. I should be a kapara for Rabbi Chiyahu banav. From here you see Resh Lakish was Sfaradi, right? Kapara. So this is, of course, we explained yesterday, based on the Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Bet, that any Yisurim that comes on me should be a kapara for him. The Gemara there in Kiddushin is speaking about father and mother, that a person within the 12 months after the passing of their parents, Rahman al-Islam, they should, every time they quote their father or mother, they should say, Areni kaparat mishkavo. Right? This is a showcasing of kavod, that it should be a kapara for them. Now, by the way, in parenthetically, why 12 months? Because the Gemara says, Mishpat Reshaim Begeinam Yud Bet Chodesh. That even great Reshaim, when they go to Geinam is so intensified that 12 months and you're good. That's the max, right? Therefore, by the way, we stop the Kaddish a week before or a month, the beginning of the month, and then you end up with the thing. So you end up not saying Kaddish for a week or 3 weeks, depending on your minhag, to not indicate that my father was a Rasha or my mother was a Rasha. You don't want to do that. So therefore you stop. Some people say, no, I don't care about this. In every Kaddish is so important. I don't care what people think. I don't want my father or my mother's neshama to have any suffering. By the way, once we add this, there is actually a very interesting Kaf HaChaim in Siman Nun Vav, in Halachot of Kaddish, in Siman Ksiv Katan Yutet, that discusses, he brings actually from Shara Gilgulim Avari HaKadosh, in Hakdama Chafbet, I believe it is. There, Marchus says, yeah, you think Mishpat Reshayim beGeinam Yud Bet Chodesh, but who said that you even have the zchut to go to Geinam? It says most people, it says most people don't go straight to Geinam. They have to go through Kafakela and Gilgul and all kinds of this. So you end up with several years of Onashim Kashim Umarim before you even enter the Geinam. So it says the Kafachayim, based on this, maybe it is a befitting practice that the kids should say at least one Kaddish every day for just go on. Not just 12 months, but even after, for a few years, just go on every day, say Kaddish, because, who knows where the situation is, and especially in our Dor Yatov, says the Kaf HaChaim, but be that as it may, that's a function of showcasing kavod, the Gemara says, for 12 months. Here, Resh Lakish is saying it after many years, feeling that debt of gratitude to Rabbi Chiyahu Banav. Why would he have such a debt of gratitude? Of course, Resh Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan were chavrutas, and they were the two twin towers of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan is the Rosh Hashiva in Eretz Yisrael, is the author of Talmud Yerushalmi, and Eretz Yisrael was very much indebted to Rabbi Chiyahu Banav. Why? Because, says the Gemara, asks this question, right? When the Torah was about to be forgotten, because the system of education was not a perfect system of education in the time of the Gola, when Nebuzaradan had destroyed the Beit HaMikdash and took the captivity of Klal Yisrael to Babel, right, to Babylonia. So what happened was, Ezra mi Babel v'yiseda, right? Ezra, I mean, what happened was, Nebuzaradan, this is an important piece of Jewish history to discuss, so very quick, encapsulated. Nebuchadnezzar was a very wise king, very tactical. You see this from the writings of Chazal and in Tanakh. So what he did was, before he destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, 11 years already before that, he took Charash v'Masger. He took all of the leading personalities of Klal Yisrael out of Eretz Yisrael, everyone, all the Gedolei Talmidei Chachamim. The Gemara says, what's Charash u'Masger, right? Charash comes from the language of Charash u'Masger, the simple understanding. That's okay. So sometimes we get so caught up in the drush that we actually forget the Pashut Pshat. Pashut Pshat means he took all the craftsmen out of Eretz Yisrael, no one that could work with metal, because he did not want them to revolt against him. So if you can't make spears and swords and so on and so forth, so you know that's already he took the what do they call it? What's it called? Artillery. There, I think there's a thing for it. Yeah. So he took all of that out. But Chazal said, Charash u'Masger are the Gedolei Talmidei Chachamim. He took not just the craftsmen, he took all the Jewish leaders out. A community without leaders, Nebuchadnezzar knew it's farfallen, it's not going to succeed. And Charash means these are Talmidei Chachamim that as soon as they opened their mouth, everyone became Chareshim, right? Everyone was completely speechless. You had nothing to say after these people opened their mouth. He took all those leading figures out, but this really, Chazal tell us, was a genius of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just like in this week's parasha, we have it Yehuda, Shalach lefanav Goshna lehorot, that he sent, Yaakov Avinu sent Yehuda to create the Bet Ulfan, to create the Bet Midrash and Yeshiva, prior to them coming to Eretz Mitzrayim. Here also was the Charash Masker, Galut Yechonia, we call it, right? This is the early 11 years before, and when the masses of Klal Yisrael came, they already had yeshivot, right? So that was in Babel. But it also means that Eretz Yisrael was completely void and empty of leaders. So therefore, when the Torah was diminishing in Eretz Yisrael, Ezra Sofer goes up, and he was Moser Nefesh. Even though that he had Chagai, Zechariah, Malachid, all these last Nevi'im, we had them there, but no one was Moser Nefesh like Ezra Sofer to create takanot and to mamash give his life over to teaching Torah. So therefore, Ezra Sofer was the first person that re-established Torah in Eretz Yisrael. After hundreds of years, again, the Torah was in a diminishing state in Eretz Yisrael, even though you had massive Rashi Yeshivot, but Lemasa in the time of Hillel HaZaken, Hillel HaBavli we call it. Why do we call Hillel HaZaken Hillel HaBavli? Because it came ala mi Bavel. He came from Bavel to Eretz Israel to re-establish the Torah. He humbly answered the questions that they didn't know. And, to their credit, the Rashi Yeshivot of Eretz Israel, they said, you are much bigger than us. You should be Rosh Yeshiva. They stepped down from the position of Rosh Yeshiva, and they crowned Hillel as the Nasi over Eretz Yisrael, and then that becomes the illustrious chain of Nesi'im up down to Rabban Gamliel, Rabbi Shlomo Gamliel, and all those children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Hillel HaZaken, which became the luminaries of Torah in Klal Yisrael. So therefore, take a look at the last line in Rashi, Ala Hillel HaBavli, שמيום שגלה יחוניה וחרש מהמזכר עמו, הייתה ישיבה מצויה בבבל. Bavel, we just mentioned, was illustrious in those generations because all of the Gedolim, from the time of Galut Yechonia, before the destruction, by 11 years, Torah was flourishing in Bavel, right? So Eretz Yisrael was the one that needed some TLC, so therefore, we needed Ezra to go there. Later on, a few hundred years later, we needed Hillel HaZaken, so that's twice, right? So when it was Chazra v'nishtakcha alu Rabbi Chiyahu banav, the third time that it was almost forgotten or was on the way, not that it was going down, was diminishing, Rabbi Chiyahu banav came. Now, Rabbi Chiyahu, we said the whole story yesterday, how he would prevent it. It's a tremendous thing. And the Gemara in Nidat of Kaftalit says that his children, Rabbi Chiya's children, did the same thing as their father. They dedicated their life to making sure that the Torah does not go away from the community and it starts flourishing and teaching it from the kids from ground up to create new generation of Talmidei Chachamim. That's the respect that Resh Lakish hundreds of years later has for Rabbi Chiyahu Banav, Hareni Kaparat Mishkavo. And of course, the way he says it here is indicative that Resh Lakish holds that this is the Ikar. Because now we have Machloket Resh Lakish, right? And the Gemara before, Rabbi Abdi Bar Hamduri, Rabbi Abdi Bar Hamduri said, this chotzalot are what? Sacks. Resh Lakish says, no, they're not sacks, they are mats, right? So now that they're mats, we have Rav Dosa saying that these mats are indeed Mekabel Tuman, and we have our question formed. Our Braita said, Rav Dosa says, Kedvarav of Rabbi Yossi, that mats are kasher for Sukkah. And this Mishnah in Idiot Perek Gimel, Mishnah Dalet, says that Rabbi Dosa held that chotzalot, which now we're translating machatzalot, are Mekabel Tumat Met. Right? They're susceptible to a tum'ah from a corpse, which by definition means they are a kli, right? And they would by definition be pasul for schach of your sukkah. So says the Gemara, well, before we answer it, v'kach amar Rabbi Chiyahu banav, lo nechleku Rabbi Dosa v'chachamim. This is Rabbi Chiyahu and his children. They're explaining this Mishnah of the machloket Rabbi Dosa v'chachamim al machzalot shel Usha. They did not disagree, says Rabbi Chiyahu. Machzalot of the city of Usha, they are all temeot. They all are mekabel tumah, right? Why? Because they were soft and geschmack. People would, normally speaking, in city of Usha, sleep and sit and lay on these machzalot. So it says, Rabbi Chiyahu, Rabbi Dosa and Chachamim are not even speaking about city of Usha. City of Usha, all of the machzalot pasul, because people is dar geschmack, people lay on them. And they're also not talking about the machzalot of Teveria. Nobody sits on those, right? Those are only for schach. So what is the point of machloket? The rest of the country, right? The rest of the regular mats that people make, Rav Dosa says they're good, they're bad, they're pasul, they're mekabel tumah, and Chachamim say they're not. More savar kevan, the leka diyativ alayhu. One of them holds that people normally do not sit on them, therefore they're kasher, because they're not tamet tumad midras, right? And the other one holds, no, sometimes they do, right? Umor savar kevan de mikri v'yatvi alayhu. Sometimes they do sit on them, Therefore, they're considered like Usha, like the Machzalot of Usha, and they're not only Tameh Tumat Met, but they're also Tameh Tumat Medras. Now, but both of them agree that they're Tameh Tumat Met. And that's all we need. Our kasha is not from Midras. We don't care about that. So long as you tell me this accepts, it's susceptible to some tum'ah, I have a problem. And you're telling me both Reb Dosa and Chachamim agree that all of these mats, Usha, Teveria, all the other countries, all of them, they may differ, they may argue if they are susceptible to Tumat Midras, but everyone agrees that they become Tameh Tumat Met. If they become Tameh Tumat Met, they are Kelim. If they are Kelim, they are susceptible to Tum'ah, they are automatically Pasul for Schach. So we have a big problem right now. Says the Gemara, Amar Mor, Kol HaChotzalot Metamein Tumat Tumat Met. We reiterate this. All of the Machzalot, all the Chotzalot, Metamein Tameh Tumat Met, they accept, they're susceptible to Tumat Met. Divrei Reb Dosa, this is Reb Dosa. So they accept Tumat Met. And says the Gemara, V'atanya v'chen haya Reb Dosa omer. We just learned in the last Amud that the Reb Dosa said they're all kasher for Schach. Now you're telling me in the Mishnah that they're all susceptible to Tumah. If they're Mekabel Tumah, they can't be kasher for Schach. That's the stira that we just said, right? And the Gemara said it, finally. So it says the Gemara, lo kasha, it's not a kasha. There are two different, Reb Dosa is the same Reb Dosa. He's talking about two different types of mats. Had it le gedanfa, had the little bit gedanfa. One of them has gedanfa, the other one doesn't have, what's gedanfa? A lip, an edge. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Dosa of the Braita that said these chotzalot are kasher for schach is talking about a simple, straight, flat mat. That's not mekabel tumah, unless you sit on it, usually. It's not mekabel tumah. But the Mishnah that says, Rabbi Dosa agrees that they are mekabel tumat met, is talking about not a flat mat, but a mat that has edges. Therefore, you could put fruits on it, and the fruits are contained in it, and therefore it's a kli, like any other kli. Even though that's a mat, but it's a kli. So says the Gemara, Metive, they asked in the Beit Midrash, Chotzalot shel Sham, v'shel Gemi, v'shel Sak, v'shel Sfira, right? All these machatzalot, metameh tamemet, divrei Rabbi Dosa. All of these chotzalot, they are except tumat met. Chachamim omrim af midras, right? Chachamim say even tumat midras. Bishlam amar marzubli. According to the one that says these are sacks, right? Shel Shav shel Gemi, I can understand because the softer ones, the chazi le kinta, the peri, they could contain fruits. Shel Sak v'shel Sfira. The ones that are made out of sack, which is Sa'ar Izim, the hair of goats, and Sfira is from the long hairs of horses, right? Chazu legul kivesani. They are also befitting for you could use it as a curtain or cover. So that's also fit for something. Says the Gemara, Ela lemanda amar machzalot mamash. But if you say that these are not sacks, but this is actual mats, why are they mikabel tumah? Shel sak v'shel sfira. I could understand the sack and sfira that are made out of hair. Chazu leparsi v'nafvata. They are good for making drapery, and also nafvata, which means to sift something. Nafva, right? Ela shel sham v'shel gemi. But the sham and gemi that are softer mats, lemay chazu, they have holes in them. So what they're good for? Says the Gemara, leneziata, they are good for covering barrels of drinks. Ikadamri, there are those who say it the other way around. right? Because you have to, this is just a side thing to understand why they would be Mekabel Tumah. They have to be a Kli or serving a Kli to be Mekabel Tumah. So the Gemara says that the other way around. That Bishlam the Mandamar, according to the Mandamar, the Resh Lakish, that Chotzalot are Machatzalot, they're Mamash mats. Shel Sham ve Shel Gemi Chazu leNeziata. Right? Those are good for covering barrels. Shel Sak ve Shel Sfira Chazu leParsi veRafata. Right? They are good for drapery and for sifting things. But if you say they're sacks, not mats, Bishlam shel sak v'sfira chazu lekulki v'sani ela shel sham v'shel gemi lemay chazu. What are those good for? So says the Gemara lekinta de peri. They're good still for larger fruits that you could put in, and they will contain them. And that's the answer of the Gemara. One related Braita the Gemara brings, the last thing in the Perek. Tanya Rav Hanania. Rav Hanania said, Kesheyarati legola. When I went down from Eretz Yisrael to Galut, which the Gemara in the Masechet Brachot, for those who remember, at the very end, Naf Samech Gimel, said that Rav Hanania was the one that was in charge of being Mechadesh, Me'aber de Chodesh, and he had to go down to Bavel to do that. So when I went to Bavel, Matzati Zaken Echad v'Amar, I found a Zaken Echad that told me Mesachechin beBudia. Uchshabati etzel Rabbi Yehoshua achi Abba. Right? I came to my uncle, right? And Budia is machzelet, right? It's the same thing. Budia is a mat. So I went to Bavel, this Zaken told me you could use mats for schach, right? I came to my uncle back to Eretz Yisrael, and he told me, well, it depends. Hoda lidvarav, he agreed with his words that you could do it, and says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chisda, it depends. Vehu de let legedanfa. It's only when you don't have ledges that would make it a kli. Amar ula hani budita de bene mechuza. And Ula says these budita, this mats of the city of Mechuzah in Bavel, ilmale kir shelahen. If they didn't have these walls, these ledges, then mesachechin behu. Then we would use them as schach because there would not be a kli and it would be kasher for schach. Tanya lamihachi. Another last supporting braita that mesachechin bebudia we could use budia, this mats for schach of the sukkah, ve'im yesh lahen kir, but if they do have a wall, then en mesachin bahen, then you can't use them as a schach because they are considered a kli. Hadran alach sukkah, the end of first perek, and be'ezrat Hashem we will be continuing, starting the second perek tomorrow morning. Hazaku baruch.